You know, they gave me a script, and as I normally do, I left it in the back. So I'm going to speak to you for the few minutes that I have to try and give you a sense of what's really going on in the city of New Orleans. There are many untold stories. The city of New Orleans, the people are fighting to come back to that city, but it's a city that's being strangled. When the federal government talks about $100 billion coming to the city of New Orleans or to the Gulf Coast region, very little of those dollars have gotten to the local government or to the people themselves. Most of the money is spent with companies from no-bid contracts, because I couldn't figure out how you could spend $100 billion, but they are doing it. And right now, we're coming upon the anniversary of Katrina, and I have had to manage the city of New Orleans on 25% of its pre-Katrina budget. $120 million in community disaster loans, which normally after a disaster those are grants, but we're special. And $1.3 million from the state in emergency grant. That's it. And we are left with the task of doing 5, 6, 7, 10 times the work. And right now, with the perceptions that are going around the world, is that we don't quite have our act together. We don't have a plan. We're too corrupt. You know, some people don't deserve to come back to the city of New Orleans. When I got in trouble in a big way, it was when I rejected the notion that certain neighborhoods and certain people didn't deserve to come back to the city of New Orleans. I do not believe it's government's role to tell you where you can and cannot live. I believe it's government's role to create the right environment for you to make intelligent decisions on where you should live. So right now, ladies and gentlemen, we are a city that's on the comeback. We're ahead of anybody's projections. We're at about 250,000 from our original 462,000 people pre-Katrina. But we are struggling. And we are struggling because we're not getting the resources down to the people who really need it. And nobody's writing about that. Nobody's covering it. If I were to tell you, and this is what really makes me mad, if I were to tell you that in order to get grants to help you to come back to the city of New Orleans, because the levees failed, federally responsible levees, that a citizen in New Orleans has to go through a process where they're treated like a criminal, where they have to have a fingerprint, a mugshot, and go through 3 hours of interviews before they could get any money to help them. Would that be worthy of some type of story? But oh, let me make a speech on Martin Luther King's birthday and dare to say that New Orleans is going to be a diverse city again. And that is international news and is beat on week after week after week. Ladies and gentlemen, as I close, they told me I only had 10 minutes to do this. I don't know how you do a whole year worth of what I went through in 10 minutes. But I come here with a message for you as black journalists, as people of color. You need to tell this story. And you need to look for angles that your boss may not approve of. Because people are suffering. To this day, our government still has not stepped up and treated people in New Orleans like they should have. And nobody's telling that story. Spike Lee has a piece out. I premiered it the other day. It starts to deal with the real issues. So don't be hoodwinked. Don't be bamboozled to think that people in leadership in New Orleans can't get the job done. We need the resources. And everybody else just get out the way. And we'll rebuild that city into one of the greatest cities that ever was in this country. But we need your help. We are being strangled. And they're using the money to set local policies, to try and take control of the city, to do things that they had in mind all along. And that's to shrink the footprint, get a bunch of developers in the city, and try and do things in a different way. We're not going to let that happen. They're going to give us our money, and we're going to rebuild this city, and hopefully we can have your help. God bless you. Thank you.